I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
Dude, dragons, I love it. I've been loving it.
Yeah, it is really enjoyable. I read like 5 chapters today at work because I was just being a procrastinating, lazy piece of shit all weekend. And then
we were busy this weekend. We did the board games, and we had a lot of dragon interactions there too, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
That was fun.
Yeah, I had to read like the majority of it today at work, and it was really easy to do. Mm-hmm. There was, much like I said last week, there was never any time that I felt like I was dragging or that I was like, oh, wouldn't get to the next chapter or anything like that.
Yeah, the only thing maybe is just like a little bit of like, I hope I can finish this before.
Yeah.
That's the only time like maybe I've ever had that, like when I'm reading too, like trying to catch up on the last day if I give it not enough time,
Yeah.
Just cramming.
The only thing about it is that it's just so simple.
Yeah.
The story, which is fine and what I was expecting. I said weeks ago, whenever I first said, let's choose this one or whatever, even when, a month and a half ago, whenever I first threw it up on the table just as an option, I was like, this just seems like it's fun.
Yeah.
I never expected it to be like anything like crazy, but it just to be like kind of candy, but like, God, it is really just cotton candy.
It's very, honestly, I think we were talking about it a little before, but it's a simple story, and I feel like I've been really appreciating that it's been simple, but it hasn't been, like, the story beats have been simple, but I feel like there have been, like, in between, like, the moments between the characters have been really, like, they've been fun and they've been keeping me laughing, and I've never been frustrated that it's so simple. Like, I get frustrated at the constable, of course, but
because he's the antagonist and we're
he's
supposed
so
to hate
bad.
him.
He's just like the worst.
He's bad in the way that like
a cartoon character would.
Right,
be bad.
He's like cartoon bad. He gets on the dark web, which is just like this generation's version of the black market.
Forgot about that.
Like anytime you need to try and very quickly, without any effort, show that somebody is like morally ambiguous at the best, is that you say they get on the dark web. Just like you used to, they used to say that at the black market in stories, television and books and movies, 15 years ago. Just like, how do we introduce this character as being either a bad guy, or if he's the guy that we recruit to the team who's just kind of like the guy who gets things done but isn't like an angel. Oh, he got his tools on the black market. Oh my God.
Dude, so I know in like stories the black market sometimes was like a physical place that was like like it would pop up and it'd be like a tent stand, or it'd be like in Resident Evil it'd be like the underground guy that would be like, you want to buy a gun,
right.
What's like the black market in like real life? I mean, I know we just said the dark web, but before the dark web, what was the black market? Was it just like buying like weed under the bridge, or like
effectively? That's definitely like a maybe like an entry level version of it.
Black market,
That's whenever you start getting into a life of crime, or
is it just like a vague term for illegal buying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really all that like it by definition means. I'm sure that there are organized, people in organized crime that have took it to another level.
Oh, for sure. Just like on the dark web, there was like a Silk Road that was selling anything from like drugs to guns to like couches, and like there was everything on there. And
it's all like, I think more than anything it's just illegal.
Exactly.
Which is, you don't claim your taxes on it if you sold something.
Oh, right.
And things like that, like anything that's
Bitcoin.
skirting the law
in
any fashion, even if it's just not then paying sales tax on the thing, is, I guess by definition, not that I've ever looked up the Merriam-Webster definition of black market or dark web, but I would bet that just by definition, by skirting the law in some fashion, you are now doing something that is within that umbrella. The dark web more specifically is a little bit more easily to define because there is a quote unquote physical space on the internet for it to exist. And it's all, a bunch of complicated, backdoors and passwords and having to know exactly where you are needing to go to get there, and also needing to be invited at the same time, and like all these different like very specific things. Whereas the black market was a bit more ambiguous because it was kind of just like the world, but you have connections.
Yeah, there's no like Google on the dark web, so you can't like look up you can't just look up.
I don't think that there's a dark web search engine.
Yeah, so you have to have like the URL, and then
as I understand it,
a lot of times you do need a password in our account. Like I know. Yeah, no, I know a lot of times that's a good point.
Yeah, there is more of a, it's not literally physical, but compared to what the black market idea was, there is like a physical space in comparison.
That's so funny though. I forgot that was like even an element of that. Like I do remember him saying, I forgot what he said he got on there, or was he just lurking to like...
It mentioned it more than once in these chapters. Yeah. Like the first time it mentioned it, I think that he had acquired something, like maybe the grenade launcher that he had or something that. But then there was also, I don't think it mentioned it explicitly, but I'm sure that, if they had taken the time to dive into this, small bit of backstory beat where he's talking about the oil selling that was happening when he was in Iraq and he was still deployed over there or whatever. And it was like hundreds of millions of dollars of business or whatever. I'm sure that has something to do with the dark web.
Yeah.
But then there was another time whenever he was in his head and he was thinking about how he was mad that he had already missed a week of work because he was planning on faking sick for another week later in the year to go on a sniper camp. It was a dark web sniper camp.
That was
what is that even supposed? Maybe it probably does literally exist, but like that is like
secret.
If I had to come up with a series of keywords to describe the character that's trying to be described in this book, that's exactly what I would choose. Yeah. Those are just such like obvious sniping's cool. Yeah. And like sniping a weird, like sort of romanticizing war kind of way. Sure. He's a bad guy. Dark web. It's just all the buzzwords needed for this character to have a thought about.
Yeah, he's going to a sniping practice camp so that he can like continue. Like, that's awesome. I mean, it's not awesome because I'm sure they're
archetypical of this character.
That's what I mean by it's awesome. It's perfect for this character. Yeah, that's what I meant. And so I honestly didn't know if that would bother me because like when we were reading the hook page, it was pretty much screamed like these are simple stereotypical characters, right. And I didn't know if that was gonna bug me or whatever, and it really hasn't. It's kind of been playful and fun, but like you're right, everybody is like the exact like
definition of what their character should be, and, which happens a lot in, I mean, just in storytelling in general. Yeah, honestly, like with all the, I watch a lot of really bad quality stuff, and so these archetypes are just constant throughout all the media that I take in.
Yeah, you even mentioned that like the young adult theme is more on the relationships rather than
in my experience. And I was actually even also talking with a coworker the other day about something. We were talking about young adult novels, and he doesn't read a whole lot of them, but once in a while he dips into something just to get something easy and light. And he was talking about what he appreciates about them is that it doesn't need to be complicated. It's more about what, at least in his experience, and what I then agreed with after he kind of put it to words. What in his experience, more often than not, the young adult genre is about emotions and connections between characters than anything. Yeah, not even necessarily the characters themselves, though. Sometimes you do end up with great, characters, as you do with anything. But that's what it tends to be more about than having this insanely complicated Westerosian storyline. Right.
Yeah, I honestly did think the story was going to be a little more complicated than it was, just because in that first little section that we read, it felt like it was trying to give a lot of like volume and like backstory on like these are Wyvern and
it kind of had to set up the mythology for a real world in which dragons still exist.
Right, and because I thought it was done pretty good, at least enough for me to be satisfied and not like go like, well, that's dumb.
It was an appropriate amount,
right? Yeah, and I thought that with that it might have a little bit more complex of like a story. And I mean, we still have a third of the book left, so you could go anywhere. But
but you can kind of see exactly what's going to happen, right?
I think I know what's going to happen. Yeah, and I'm still excited to watch it.
It'll be fun.
But I was thinking about the story because I was like, I thought it'd be more complicated, but maybe they're like, before you had told me that like it was in the character building and like the relationships that happened, I was thinking that the depth was in like this one scene that I remember specifically. It was when he was when like Vern was talking about wanting to kill himself, and then Squib talked him out of it. I don't know. I just thought that like hit a bunch of young adult themes that I remember a lot of people having on both sides of it, like being on, like, I don't know, I remember people being on like the depressed side and then the people being on like the try to be positive side. And it was just, felt like it was done in a way that wasn't like gross, that like a kid could read it and maybe get something from it.
There wasn't too much in either direction.
Right. And it was just fun.
Kind
and
of just
handled
like a simple scene.
Yeah. And it handled a serious thing in a simple way. And I thought that was cool, you know, and thinking back on it, I'm just like, oh, that was nice. Like, and then, you know, of course we knew they were going to be friends, but that was like the turning point of them, like of Vern really caring for Squib, you know. And
it was an easy
loving,
catalyst
but,
because we know, you know, Vern's struggle being the only one and
lonely,
knowing that he's going to be having issues once Waxman goes down into the mud.
Wacky man.
Yeah, because it's his only friend, even if it's kind of like a slight begrudging friendship, and he doesn't trust humans, but now he has to trust one because Waxman's going down and blah blah and all that stuff, and then from, you know, Squib's side, he's just trying not to die, but he's also kind of in awe of this dragon because it's a dragon,
right? Yeah.
And so it's just an easy catalyst, you know. That's an easy scene and story beat to put in and make so that they can now, you know, like you said, that's the turning point for them to sort of solidify a relationship rather than like, you know, still kind of like tiptoeing around each other. Like, how do we interact? Yeah. You know, because up until that point, Vern was often not even there whenever he came to drop things off and do whatever other tasks he had to do. And
I see a lot of relatable things for kids. I mean, I when you were saying that, I was like, man, I could totally see people relating to Vern not being there when you come by. Right. And I don't know, that was probably my favorite scene so far of the book. I mean, it's been funny. It's been really funny, honestly. Yeah. And when he like even though this is like a bad scene because this is where like the constable, I was about to call him the chairman. The chairman. The constable, like he saw this all happen, but when like the boar was like coming in at Squib, and then Vern had to go like save him, and then they ended up just eating pork, and then he was like, "Well, bring it home to your mama," like, and Squib was like, "Oh, I love making my mom happy. This will be so fun." Like, and I don't know, it was just like, it was a fun little scene, and it brought back up the alligators that like he had been fighting for hundreds and hundreds of years or whatever.
Right.
It was fun. Oh, and I was thinking, it said he was millennia old, right?
Yeah.
So he was like around with dinosaurs. Like he'd seen the entire evolution of humans.
Yeah,
that's wild. So yeah. When I started thinking about that, I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's kind of weird." When I thought about it, because
right, I think he's like, you know, closer to 3,000 than 2,000.
Is millennia 1,000 or million? Yeah. I thought millennia was 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000.
I mean, I thought millennia was million.
No, sorry. I don't know what the term for a million years is. I don't know what that is. Century is 100.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Because the other guy was centuries old.
Yeah.
Waxman.
I don't know. Yeah, millennia is 1,000, but I don't know.
Okay, well, never mind then. I was thinking he was with a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But then how did he dodge the comet or whatever killed the dinosaurs? Dinosaurs are fake.
Dinosaurs are fake. Dinosaurs are dragons.
What? Birds are dragons.
All kinds of dragons. Birds aren't real.
Birds are fake.
That's my favorite meme these days.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a meme.
Oh yeah, birds are a lie. They're government surveillance drones.
Oh man, I've got them like, I'm like feeding the surveillance drone. Do they run on seeds?
Apparently, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Bird seed is fake too.
Yeah,
it's just electronic chips,
little batteries.
Yeah.
Dude, birds are crazy. They just eat rocks to chew up their food. Anyway,
that's what cows do.
Do they? I didn't know cows did that.
I think they do to varying degrees.
Oh. God, animals are weird. They just don't have I mean, we're weird too.
Yeah. Animals think we're weird probably, if they have thoughts like that.
Yeah. It's been, like Vern has kind of had some thoughts like that. But it's more like typical human.
Right, yeah. But he's also totally sentient, you know?
Oh, yeah.
He can form a thought.
Yeah.
Like a coherent, like,
it was
thought
fun.
Train.
Yeah. It was kind of fun listening to him talk about like the animals, I guess, you know, like that boar that he had been fucking with a bunch. It was the same one that he knew that like had been constant. He just never got
He just like chased it off. Yeah. He never killed it.
Yeah. Never got the hint that it's like, hey, you can't come into my area.
Just kind of toyed with it.
Yeah. And, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Just, I don't know if he was necessarily relating on like an animal level, but he was just kind of like I think it was just something to do, and he liked doing it. So
I wouldn't think that he would relate on an animal, though, because he finds himself to be above humans even,
Yeah, good point. Because he can... Dude, how frustrating must that have been, like, to be flying, and then humans can, like, they just started doing it with, like, planes and stuff.
Right.
I don't know why I think that'd be so frustrating.
I bet it would.
I was rereading Harry Potter and thinking about, like, planes being introduced to, the magical world, and how, like... They're just like, dang it, now it's like not safe to fly brooms anymore. I don't know.
Right.
Probably didn't really bother them that much. I'm sure there's a spell for it. But so we kind of left the last scene and like it was pretty intense. Like
yeah. With Squib getting captured and Waxman appears to be dead.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask you, like, is Waxman still alive? But one thing that did make me think this is like a good young adult writer, because it made me think of like other books that I had read where they had these sort of one-off lines and stuff, and I'm glad I didn't think when I heard it that I would remember to say it, but when Squib is about to get hit with the back of the gun, he thinks to loosen his jaw so that he doesn't like break his teeth.
Yeah.
On
he
impact
remembers
of the ground.
what his buddy had said. Yeah.
That's something that I've seen a ton of times in like young adult novels, that it's just like that's something a boy would love to learn if they read it in a book, like a young kid, I would love to have read that in a book and been like, oh, that's like, then I would be like, I remember that from a
if
book.
That ever happens
exactly,
to me.
Exactly. I just feel like that's something you probably wouldn't need to know, but it's kind of cool because I'm a boy and I feel like maybe I would get in a fight and need to know that, or maybe I would get hit with the back of a rifle. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But like I just thought that maybe that would be something good. I did like learning,
and it's a
too.
humorous like thing to have the character think of in the moment that he's already sort of resigned to his fate. He knows what's already, he's already sort of like given up, and even responding to Hook's things like when Hook's like we're going hunting or whatever, and Squib's just like kind of just like looking down. He's just like, what are we hunting, Constable? He's totally given up to what's going to happen. He can't do anything, and so then he sees that he's going to get hit again, and so he has the thought, and that's like. In this moment of despair, it's a small bit of comic relief, and something that's literally true, or whatever. It's the kind of thought that Locke would have had in the Gentleman Bastard series whenever he was about to get captured. He'd be like,
very true.
Got to remember to loosen my jaw.
Yeah, I love those little things. Just as like, oh, that's fun.
They're just good character moments,
right. I really like Squib. I mean, I know we're supposed to, but like. They wrote him to be like like super dumb or something, and then the more we're hanging out with him, I'm like, fuck, he just talked a sentient dragon that's been alive for thousands of years out of killing himself. Like of course he didn't do it in the most complicated way, but it was fun still, and it was just like, man, this guy's like. He's pretty cool. Like he asks like when he was coming up with like the 3 questions that he was going to ask Vern, and like the third one was like, what do you do with your wiener? Like where does that go?
Yeah. How does that disappear?
Yeah, he's like, well, maybe I should ask that first, because he always gets mad when like I get when I start interrogating him and ask too many questions. So I'll ask that one first. But like his original reason for asking it later was to like warm him up to it, I think.
Right.
But I don't know. I definitely thought he was going to be a lot dumber than he is, and so far he hasn't been too crazy dumb. I mean, he's been maybe
he's
a
just a backwater Cajun kid. He'd rather be out on the water doing part-time jobs than paying attention in school.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm just kidding. He had a pontoon boat. What is that? Right? Is that what he's had, or was it like
it's spelt something else.
Oh, never mind then.
I don't know enough about watercraft to be able to identify exactly what that means, but
I was imagining one of those boats with the giant fans on the back.
I think they just call that a fan boat.
Fan boat?
I think that's literally just called a fan boat. Yeah, those they didn't try very hard.
Yeah, that's definitely not what he had then. Cause it was a fan boat. Yeah, but that's what I imagined anyway. And that would have been so loud, and Vern would not be into that.
Right. I think he just has a regular small engine boat of some sort. They do consistently refer to it as this one thing, but I don't remember what it is exactly, and I don't know how to pronounce it because it doesn't look like anything that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think chewing on the dragon scale is going to become important in this next section of the book.
Even with it having been revealed to not be important?
I think it's still going to matter.
Like it's just going to come up somehow anyways.
When did it reveal it wasn't important? How did I miss that?
Whenever they were having the sit down after Vern melted the sofa.
Oh yeah,
either that or after the suicide attempt. I can't remember. It was one of the two. Whenever they were sitting down, and one of the times that we get prolonged conversation between the two of them.
Yeah. Man, I missed that.
Vern just outright says, yeah, the dragon skull thing's bullshit. I mean, you might be slightly dumber because of my breath, but you're not going to die.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that. I don't remember what brings it up, but it's in one of those conversations.
Yeah. I for some reason, I was just thinking like, okay, it'll matter because like it'll help him communicate to Vern what's going on, but he's just going to text that. He's just going to get a text. Like he doesn't need to do some magical connection with his. Damn. I wanted that to be cool. Like a cool thing.
Another thing I have a problem with is the sim cloning that Hook did somehow lets him get the messages that he's getting through WhatsApp, which makes no sense to me.
No, yeah, that was that.
Because WhatsApp is an internet-based messaging system that's not tied to your phone number, and the only thing, and this is a problem that I have with clients all the time. People are like, "Well, aren't my text messages and my contacts on my SIM card?" No, they're not. Your SIM card just registers your phone's identification number with your carrier so that they know this phone should be getting this stuff. And if you clone it, yes, you can then start receiving things that are tied to your phone number, like text messages and calls and stuff like that. But not things that are separate of that, like WhatsApp, which they then, not even then, but prior to, have explicitly stated multiple times that's what he uses to communicate with both Waxman and Vern. And so that makes no sense at all, and that just bothers me.
Yeah.
I spent 5 seconds researching, and you would have figured that out.
Yeah, he should have... Squib should have stood up for himself, but that's one of the moments that it's like, okay, he's more simple, like, because dude, that would have been such bullshit. All the like things that the constable was saying, that he broke so many laws and rules. He just twisted it, and he was like, and he like threatened him with like, well, it's just gonna take all day and embarrass your mom. It's like, dude, first of all, you broke in,
right?
Broke into my house, and now you're demanding my cell phone and my ID. You know, if you have a lock on your phone, you don't have to. I don't think you have to give that to anybody. That's like,
you don't.
Yeah, they have to.
In fact, very recently there was a big hubbub about the FBI wanted Apple to decrypt a few phones that they had for some terrorist stuff, and Apple refused to.
And they should have. Good. Like, that's the right move.
Yeah,
it sounds bad
as far as like data privacy goes, I think that was kind of like an important thing to happen.
Yeah, as bad as it is saying like, I'd rather them not be able to find out who those terrorists were from them, but...
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's obviously an extreme situation.
For sure, there's always going to
be
But
in the face of like, you know, the way things that seem to be currently moving, you know, we could very quickly be in a police state. You know, we're only so many steps removed from that. Now, obviously, for that to actually come to fruition would be very difficult. But and a lot of things would have to go very wrong in immediate succession with each other, and the American people would just have to let it happen, which is unlikely. You know, we've fucking, as much as we like to fucking talk about how we have guns to prevent that, but in the current climate of us being, you know, only like 6 steps away from a police state, the idea that some companies stood up and said, no, we're not going to decrypt this, you know, security for you just because you want us to, is at the very least one large counter to what was happening.
Yeah.
But so then, yes, you don't have to surrender your phone like that. But again, he's just this backwater Cajun kid, and he's the only law enforcement in town.
He's doing it
kind of runs the place.
Trouble, of having to deal with going down to the because like what are you gonna do? Fight this guy off, and he is the law. Like, they're gonna believe him, like,
right? And at the time, he doesn't realize that he knows about Vern, and he's got an appointment that night to go deliver more things to Vern. He has to almost every day or something like that, and so he can't be late for that, because I think at that point he's still sort of on the edge. I don't think he's had the you know, like, now we're friends sort of situation. Right. So he, and I might be remembering that wrong, but I think he might have at that time still been like, I could die if I don't show up on time. So it's kind of like, okay, fuck it, just fucking take my phone. I don't have anything on there. He removed the video, and so like he did all the things right. Good. He just wasn't anticipating.
He even deleted his recently deleted, which I thought was probably a good step to add.
It also doesn't really work that way on a phone. But anyways.
I mean, I know that it works on... I mean...
That was like the equivalent of like, oh, I moved things to my trash can on my desktop, but then you have to empty the trash can. And that's true for computers. It's not necessarily the same for phones.
Doesn't it do that on iPhones?
Well...
It has a recently deleted thing. Does that matter?
That also... It depends on some things as well. Like for photos. And then the other problem is with iMessage, is that shit's like stored unless you go in and specifically say, no, get rid of this forever.
Right. Yeah. It's all going immediately to the cloud probably.
Yeah. So It is kind of situational. Maybe that makes, if he has an iPhone, which they haven't outright said because they don't want to have to pay for that, then sure. Yeah. If not, less likely. But then even still, not necessarily. So, yeah. But he didn't anticipate him having a SIM card cloner. Mm-hmm. Probably Squibb doesn't even know what that means. So
Owen Colford doesn't even know what that means.
Evidently not.
But I have been really enjoying the book, and I don't know. I feel like I wonder if he it's a male author, right? On Owen. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he writes like exclusively young adult novels. If they were just saying Artemis Fowl because it was a young adult novel, and they could maybe relate to another one,
Mm-hmm. It's certainly, I say certainly, even though I don't actually know, but I would think that that's his most renowned series, his most known work.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure I've said this before, but like J.K. Rowling went out and wrote some other stuff that was outside of the young adult, like Harry Potter, mythos and stuff. And so I don't know. I wonder if he's got some other stuff. That'd be interesting to see. I'm sure he's got at least something. We looked him up, and he was like 60, in his 60s, right?
He was. What is it that I read? Born in 65?
Oh, born in 65. That's where I got the 60. So,
I think he was born in 65 or 68 is what I had read when we briefly looked it up earlier.
So, what is that? 50 in his 50s, right?
Well, because it's the 70s. 1969 would have been 50 years ago. 61 years ago. I don't know. 51 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
So then if he was born in 65, then he'd be 54.
Yeah.
Depending on the month.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like he's probably old enough to have like young adult kids now, Maybe
probably,
not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel like that.
I mean,
really matters,
could be. Yeah. He certainly could have young adult kids. Yeah. There are, kids our age whose parents are only in their, mid to late 40s.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like with this book, at least, I feel like he's been kind of it almost feels like a revitalized young adult feeling to me. Like I don't know where I'm getting that, but it feels like maybe he's going kind of trying to get in the mindset of like, I'm sure that's something you have to do generally. Like if that's your wheelhouse, stay in like a young adult mindset if you're trying, or at least like an appealing mindset.
If you're intending for that to be your audience, you want what it is that you're writing to be relatable to that audience. And if you're talking about IRAs, then, the kids don't give a shit about your fucking Roth,
Yeah.
So
I just think that maybe it feels like some of the, like maybe some of the stuff he's like heard recently, or I don't know why I get that feeling, because that's just definitely me like projecting something. Like I haven't been hearing anything, but I definitely like created this fantasy where he's like writing this with like listening to his kids and like, oh, that's funny. Like I don't know, not like taking jokes or anything, but like that's a funny way to think about it. That's definitely how kids think about things. Like in Harry Potter, I was listening the other day and he was learning the Patronus, and but he was learning it so he could be better, like so he wouldn't lose at Quidditch, like not to avoid the scary monsters, like I have to do it or we'll never get the Quidditch cup,
right? This like, 1 year when the fucking Dementors are here, because they're unlikely to be here next year.
Exactly. It's such a little kid way to think, and I feel like
it's probably relatively easy to research that attitude as well. I mean, if you just stay abreast of what's happening on the internet, you can get a pretty good idea of what culture's doing.
What does abreast mean? Alongside?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. But
there's a subreddit
out of it.
I can't remember exactly what it's called because I've only ever even like looked at it like once or twice just because somebody mentioned it. But it's like r/teenagers or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're just it's just a bunch of teenagers talking about stupid fucking teenager shit. I think Ace was talking about it Saturday night.
I think so too.
And so if you just like, because you don't have to be invited to be part of a subreddit, you can just subscribe to a subreddit. So if he was just subscribed to r/teenagers or /teenager things or whatever dumb title that subreddit has, you could have an idea of what the youth of the internet is thinking and the way that they deal with stuff, because Reddit's just an open forum. It's just everybody having a running conversation basically about whatever it is that gets posted that day.
How do you know they're even kids though?
A lot of them probably aren't. But at the same time, like, I don't think that I would have the patience to be consistently involved in that subreddit because it's just people talking about stupid teenager shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably people that are recently out of being teens.
There's people that I work with that are like 23, and I don't want to think about their stupid shit.
Right,
and they're only 6 years younger than me. You know?
Right.
I can't imagine having to constantly deal, unless like I was very purposely, you know, like what brought us to this topic, like where I was trying to research what it was that teenagers were doing right now. You know,
exactly.
If I needed to know what that was for a business thing that I was doing, like writing a book, then maybe I could stomach it. But for just like that to be my life, to just be like up and up with the way that teenagers feel, like fuck you.
Yeah, man. I wonder how hard that is to get in the right mindset to write a book like this, to make it not only like relatable, because I'm sure other teens hate how teens think. So like to make it relatable to like a young adult audience. And I mean, because it's still even appealing to me and relatable in certain ways. Of course, you can find something relatable in anything. If you
I think the trick is to make it vague enough that you can, you know, relate to it.
Yeah.
That's why without it being like, even if it was a similar situation, specific enough that you couldn't relate to it, and then therefore you kind of resent it in a way and be like, well, God, that's not how I would handle that situation. What an idiot. Or, you know, that situation's not as bad as mine, or whatever it might be. You know, it has to be vague enough that it's relatable to multiple people.
And I'm sure that's why we're finding so many like recurring themes in some of the like young adult books that we read. Like, or at least, you know, I figured out about characters like a couple years. So like,
it definitely all is,
it's got to be vague, but still not like transparent.
Yeah, there are templates that are followed.
Right.
You know, there's in the same way that people are always like, oh, all the movies are remakes, and like, yeah, and that's really stupid. But there's not really any. When was the last time that anything was wholly original? Because even like Inception is not wholly original. There are elements and themes and ideas presented in that film that I've seen a dozen times before that.
Blair Witch. No, I'm just kidding.
Blair Witch.
I was thinking Paranormal
Blair Witch
Activity.
was relatively original because it was the first time that anything at least had reached that level of notoriety where, you know, and that's what kind of coined the term found footage.
Right.
And so that was an original idea, at least for a major, you know, feature-length production release.
Yeah, I was going to say Paranormal Activity, but I was like, no, that copied like the sort of idea.
Right. Paranormal Activity sort of took it to the next logical level from Blair Witch. Paranormal Activity is a really good movie. As much as I hate horror films and not hate, but dislike watching horror films and being scared because that's not what I want out of, you know, entertainment. But it was a very well done movie. Yeah. And it hit something in horror that wasn't happening for a while because for a long time it just kind of started being torture porn. But it made the monster invisible and implied rather than suddenly there's a like fucking the fucking probably worst offender in a long time. The one that has spun off all these like stupid side stories. I can't remember what it's called. You don't see the monster until the end or something like that. And then there was the second one in the series had fucking John Goodman in a bunker with a family. And then the third one in the series took place in space.
Ah, dude, I think I remember the John Goodman one.
That one was apparently really good. It was like 318 something street. But it was then revealed that it was part of the same universe. I think it's J.J. Abrams shit is the director. I can't remember. But whatever that fucking movie was called, that was also found footage, and it was just garbage. Okay, but like the monster was just stupid looking.
Yeah, I think it was like giant.
Yeah,
it seemed like it was
just like some sort of like Godzilla kaiju sort of thing.
Right, like in War of the Worlds, like those giant ass things that shot lasers and. Yeah, those are bad. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, you think this is like an original idea? I've never been down this road before, you know?
No.
A current dragon that talks and is
current
funny.
Dragon? No.
Yeah, I haven't hit this one yet. So this is
maybe
this
like
is
this literal story.
Yeah.
Right. And in the same way that a lot of literal stories are original, even Spinning Silver was an original story. It was just, kind of molded on the framework of the Rumpelstiltskin story.
Yeah, I wonder if that was even, it was a female, right? Her intent, like, I wonder if people just said, like, this kind of makes me think of Rumpelstiltskin. And she's like, fine, like, go ahead and say that.
I mean, the parallel there is relatively obvious.
No, I know.
So
I don't know if that was her intent. You know, like it was an accident.
Like she sat down one day and was like, I'm going to write a Rumpelstiltskin retelling.
I'm
Maybe
going to
not.
rewrite Rumpelstiltskin.
Right.
I've thought about that. I was like, I should rewrite the Bible as like a young adult book.
I remember you talking about this one time.
And hitting all those same like intense themes and being like, this is just the Bible. And then people would be like, huh? But I'd have to read the
Trying to con people into being a Christian.
Well, no, I'd try to con them into loving my book because so many people like that book, you know, the big book, the Bible. Right? People like that.
Do people like that?
I think they like the morals and the stories in it because it is powerful and meaningful, right? Like otherwise, why would so many people follow that? I mean, it's like meaningful poetry, like so. Poetic stories of like.
I mean, there are
right
things worth taking from it. Yes.
Right, like our country was built on the morality, I think, of that book, right?
More or less.
As much as people want to say like no church and state, but I mean that's kind of.
I mean, there were Protestants that came over to America. So
are they not Christian?
Well,
I don't know what a Protestant is. I don't know what any of them are.
A Protestant is basically a Christian that's not a Catholic.
Oh. Okay. So. Yeah, see, Christian ideals. Did I say Catholic?
No.
Okay, good. See? Yeah, but I guess the Bible is kind of, people think, well, that's why there are different translations and there's so many people into it. See? You just added a group. I already forgot. The
Protestants?
Thank you. Who are the Quakers? Did they read the Bible right? Yeah, I thought that'd be a fun.
I think everybody
rewrite.
read the Bible back then.
Yeah, that's the only book. So I mean, I guess, do we even need to read the next section? We know how it's going to end. It's just
we do know how it's going to end.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, it's only 7 chapters. I think
it'll be fun. I think
slightly longer than this week's. I don't think it's as long as the first week's.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like 115 pages or something. The first week was like 126 or something. And
okay.
This one was like 110.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit longer, a little bit shorter than the first. Basically the same.
Yeah.
And we all know how it's going to end. Hook's going to be taking Squib to New Orleans because his whole thing is that he wants to overthrow the mobster in New Orleans that he works for to start his own pipeline of, contraband. And Vern's going to get the WhatsApp message from him that he sent on Squib's phone of him laying there in the pile of Waxman.
Yeah.
And he's going to go burn New Orleans down. And we get away from Hook, and they're going to introduce this Ivory character in person finally, just so that we can see him die. And then Squib and his mom, Elodie, and Vern run off and live somewhere else in Central America, maybe Montana or something.
What about
Waxman suddenly shows up in the last paragraph.
Nice. That's a pretty good prediction. I don't want him to just boldly fly to New Orleans. That'd be a bummer. But
I don't think he's actually going to torch the entire city, but he's going to go there.
That's the thing. I don't want him to be spotted. I want him to be like a ninja.
I think that's why they have to run. I think that's why he has to leave.
He is way smaller than I thought, too.
Yeah, because he's talking about his younger brother being 10 foot and dwarfing him.
Mm-hmm.
So
good point.
He's like 7.5 foot, maybe, you know? Tall enough to obviously intimidate a human, but short enough to be, quote unquote, dwarfed by his older brother who's 10 foot.
Yeah. He's able to fight off alligators and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Super strong.
He does have dragon strength, so that still is there. Even if he was just 5 foot, he still has dragon strength.
Yeah, I didn't think I thought dragon strength was just like because they're so big, not because they're especially
That's
strong.
Definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
But I think that, when you start thinking about a mythical being, you have to then consider that their muscles are also mythical to some degree. Just they would fundamentally work in a different fashion than ours do.
Good point.
Maybe be a little bit more efficient in their, movement and that sort of stuff, just by nature of being the best predator.
Yeah, they might be able to get away then. I was thinking like he's going to blow his cover and everybody's going to come kill him, but he's not like freaking.
He could potentially die.
Not like Khaleesi's dragon that they totally ragged on Game of Thrones too. This section.
I think that it's going to be a relatively happy ending. I think that Vern gets away. I think that. I don't think that Vern actually tortures the whole of New Orleans. I think he, burns the French Quarter and wherever it is that they are, and then wherever the fight goes down, he burns, half of the French Quarter, and then the 3 of them run away. And I do think that Waxman comes back just in literally the last paragraph.
Yeah.
And then there was a knock on the door, and I heard the rasping voice of an old friend, some stupid fucking line like that. But I think we know exactly how this goes.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Well, cool. I hope you're right. And
it'll still be fun regardless.
Yeah.
I don't mean to trash it.
No, I know.
But yeah, that's it. Last 7 chapters. Finish it up.
Yeah. And you guys know how to find us at ears_stamps on Instagram and Twitter, and then dogearsandtimestamps@gmail.com. And we'll already said it, but the last bit of the book, and then we'll hit y'all next week with.
Got to find another one.
Book. Yeah.
I'm not sure what.
This one's been fun though.
I like the Witcher back. Just bring it back.
Yeah, we could. We might do that. That's not a bad idea.
I'm gonna keep jokingly tease that every 3 weeks as we try to find a new book until we finally give up and just do it.
Yeah, we don't have Warbreaker anymore to do that with, right?
That's true.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, we're done with that. That took a year to finally get to, and now we can just continually talk about how The Witcher was one of the best things that we ever did.
Yeah, that was a good series. I'm gonna re-listen to those books.
Yeah,
we've got so many. We've got a bunch, like 4 of them.
Yeah, the 2 prequels and then the first 2 books that we did for the show. Yeah.
Nice.
So I still need to read the 3rd one. I did, that week that we took off for the anime episode, I had said that I was going to try and do it, and I just never fucking did it.
We might even want to go back to the Gentleman Bastards. That might be fun because
yeah, I'm still only fucking 65% through Red Seas. So.
Oh, 65. That's pretty good. That's half. Over half.
Yeah.
I was thinking, you said 65, and I was like, hopefully he says pages. Because I was like, then we could do
I tried
easily.
For one day to read that book.
Then it's just been on the back of my mind for the rest of so many months. But yeah, we'll find something good next week. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see y'all next week with that. I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps.